Leslie's voice landed like a slap. Everything feels worse when you're around. She didn't shout it. She didn't cry. Her tone was flat, surgical. That was the part that gutted me the most. She said it like an observation, like she was checking the weather. I had just come home from work. 28 miles, bumper to bumper. My back was wet with sweat, the kind that seeps in when the AC dies halfway home. I was carrying 2 grocery bags, one with the lemon tarts Leslie liked, the other with the salmon Josh preferred grilled. I'd remembered, like I always did. She stood at the kitchen counter, scrolling her phone, earbuds in, didn't even look up when I walked in. That's when she said it. The words weren't meant to hurt, and maybe that's why they did. She wasn't trying to wound me. She just didn't care if I bled. Later that night, I sat at the kitchen table and canceled the dinner plans. I'd booked the restaurant 6 weeks in advance. A place with white tablecloths and those candles that drip wax like they're mourning something. I canceled the Oregon vacation too, the one with the rental cabin, the river trails, the stargazing deck I thought might bring us together. Then I paid off the mortgage. The house had both our names on it, mine and Julia's. That night, I made a call and had it transferred to just mine. Payment cleared. Deed amended. No conversation. They could keep the cake Julia had ordered. Forever family. Piped in pink frosting. I kept the keys. I didn't even taste the cake. That was the night I stopped pretending. But Leslie's words weren't the first crack in the foundation. Just the one I finally listened to. The truth? The rot had started long before. It was slow. Quiet. I used to think indifference was better than open hate. I was wrong. Indifference is colder. More permanent. You can fight rage. You can't argue with silence. Started when Josh turned 14. His voice dropped, his eyes sharpened, and his loyalty to his biological father hardened into something bitter. Not love, not admiration. Just this hollow allegiance. A flag he waved when he wanted to hurt me. "You're just Mom's latest," he'd said one night when I asked him to turn off the Xbox at 2 a.m. Julia had heard him. She'd been folding laundry on the couch, halfway between us. She looked up, blinked, and then folded another towel. No correction. No defense. Just silence. And Leslie? She was worse. She didn't insult me. She erased me. She stopped saying my name. Wouldn't respond when I spoke. If I texted, she'd reply to Julia instead. If I walked into a room, she'd walk out. If I bought her something, she'd thank her mother. The most I ever got from her was a closed door and a louder playlist. Still, I showed up. I thought maybe if I was kind enough, patient enough, they'd see me. I thought if I just stayed consistent, kept paying for school trips, birthdays, doctor visits, they'd eventually understand I wasn't the enemy. That I was trying. I told myself this was the long game. That respect takes time. That blood doesn't define a family, presence does. So I worked. God, did I work. Double shifts when Julia's car broke down. Freelance contracts on weekends when Josh needed new cleats. Or when Leslie wanted to join that elite orchestra tour in New York. Every dollar I made with them in mind. I kept nothing for myself. My shoes had holes. My dental work was years overdue. I hadn't taken a real vacation in nearly a decade. But they never saw that. Or maybe they saw it and just didn't care. They were kids, yes. But kids know. They know who fills the fridge. Who pays the Wi-Fi. Who shows up at parent-teacher night. Who listens to their terrible music without complaining. They know. And they choose what to honor. Josh chose his father. A man who visited twice a year and brought sneakers and stories. And Leslie? She chose to pretend I didn't exist. That was her power. To erase me. Julia. She never chose at all. She told me once, when things were tense, "You knew what you were getting into." I didn't. No one does. No one marries thinking they'll spend years trying to love someone else's children while being treated like an intruder in their own home. No one signs up for that. Not really. You tell yourself you'll blend. You tell yourself you'll earn your place. That love will grow where duty is planted. But in our house, love didn't grow. It receded. I remember one night, about 6 months before Oregon, before the mortgage transfer, when Josh came home drunk. He was 16. He'd thrown up on the porch steps. I carried him inside, stripped his shoes off, wiped his mouth, laid him in bed. The next morning, he told Julia I was weird for touching him. Made it sound predatory, malicious. Julia didn't believe it, but she didn't confront him either. She just told me to give it time, and maybe don't help him like that next time. Next time? I never touched him again. Not unless Julia asked me to. I stopped giving advice, stopped offering rides, stopped reaching out. I became a silent sponsor, like a company behind a failing project. I kept funding it, but I stopped believing in it. The day Leslie said those words, I wasn't surprised. I was just done pretending it hadn't already been said in 1,000 other ways. And I realized something as I sat at that kitchen table, phone in hand, credit card smoking from the debt I just erased. I realized I didn't need to stay in the fire to prove I could take the heat. They didn't want a stepfather. They wanted an ATM, a butler, a ghost with a checkbook. And I was tired of haunting my own life. So I cut the cord, canceled the trip, canceled the dinner, canceled the hope that anything I did would change what they believed about me. Then I paid off the house, the one they called theirs. The one they told their friends was my mom's house. I made sure the bank knew it was mine now. Just mine. Not to be petty. Not to punish. But because I finally understood. I was the only one investing in this family. And that meant I was the only one owed anything. It all broke in 12 seconds. That's how long it took for my life to tilt sideways. For illusion to snap clean and leave nothing but truth. I came home early that afternoon. Thought I'd surprise them. Dinner prep was already underway, Julia's idea. Garlic, thyme, the sound of knives tapping rhythm on the cutting board. The house smelled like family. For a second, I let myself believe it might feel that way again. Then I heard Leslie. Her voice wasn't raised, just low enough to be honest. If he just left, she said, this house would feel lighter. A pause, then a laugh. Josh probably, or maybe Julia. I don't know. Doesn't matter. I stepped through the doorway. Leslie didn't flinch, didn't hide her phone, didn't even blink. She just looked at me, eyes like stone, and said it without an ounce of hesitation. You ruin everything just by being here. That was it. 12 seconds. I didn't yell. I didn't ask why. I didn't make a speech about sacrifice or patience, or what it means to carry people who won't carry you back. I walked upstairs, sat at my desk, logged into the family travel account, canceled the Oregon cabin, the one with the river view, the fire pit, the overpriced rental van already packed with outdoor gear they wouldn't have lifted a finger to carry. Refund partial. Didn't care. Next, I left every group chat, family messenger, school emails, shared calendars. Gone. Deleted. Muted. Archived. Then I logged into the bank. The mortgage was done. Paid off in full the night she told me I made everything worse. But now it was time for something cleaner. The deed had both our names. I made it one. Transferred full ownership to me. The lawyer called an hour later to confirm. I gave verbal consent. Paid the processing fee. Sent the final document with digital signature. Done. No conversations. No explanation. Just action. I did it all before they set the table. Before Julia finished garnishing the salad she'd begged me to eat with them. Just for tonight, she'd said. I walked into the dining room once it was done. On the table sat a cake. White frosting, piped pink letters. Forever family. God, the cruelty of it. It wasn't for me. I wasn't in the photo they'd printed on the top, just Julia, Leslie, Josh. An old picture from years ago before I moved in, before I'd remodeled the kitchen they now decorated like a set for their sentimental lie. I didn't say anything, just looked at it. Then I reached for the keys, my car, my home office, the safe. Picked them up slowly. Julia turned from the oven. Wait, she said, her voice soft, like a warning, like she knew. Don't go. Not now. Please. I looked at her. Really looked. And I saw it. The absence. Not guilt. Not regret. Just fear. She was afraid I was serious this time. Afraid I might do the one thing she never expected. Leave without giving them another chance to hurt me. She stepped toward me, one hand reaching, as if she could still hold the narrative together. Let's just talk, okay? She whispered. They didn't mean it. Leslie, she's just a teenager. And Josh, he doesn't know how hard it's been for you. I stared at the cake again. Forever family. It made me sick. I walked past her, out the front door, down the steps, into the quiet that waited for me like an old friend. I didn't take a suitcase, didn't slam the door, didn't give them the satisfaction of a scene. I left everything that was theirs behind, the gifts, the tools, the receipts for birthdays they barely acknowledged. Took nothing but the keys. And silence. That night I drove. Nowhere special. Just away. The hum of the engine steadied my hands. The sky outside the windshield grew darker by the mile, but I didn't need light. I needed space. Somewhere between mile 40 and 50, I pulled over at a gas station, sat in the car with the engine off, and stared at my own reflection in the driver's side window. I didn't look like a man who had just walked out on his family. I looked like a man who had finally stopped lying to himself. Stopped pretending that love was enough. Stopped pretending that giving more would eventually lead to being seen. Because here's the truth they never tell you. The more you give to people who refuse to respect you, the smaller you become. And eventually you disappear. That night I chose to exist again. The house was quiet when I came back. Not empty, just quiet in that strange, unnatural way that means everyone's pretending not to listen for the sound of your key in the door. I didn't announce myself. Just stepped in, took off my shoes like I always had, and walked through rooms that now felt like borrowed space. It had been 6 days. 6 days since I walked out. 6 days since I stripped the illusion bare and left them with the wreckage they had built with their own hands. The dining room was still set, plates untouched, forks in perfect alignment. The cake had collapsed under its own sweetness. Forever family was now a smear of pink, sunken and spoiled. They hadn't thrown it away. Couldn't, wouldn't. That cake had become a monument. Not to love but to arrogance. Julia was waiting, alone. She stood by the living room window, arms folded like she needed to hold something inside. Her eyes were puffy. No makeup, no performance. They miss you, she said before I even sat down. I didn't respond. She tried again. Leslie's been crying. Josh barely speaks. I nodded once, just enough to acknowledge sound. Not enough to start a conversation. They didn't miss the trip, she said, voice low. They didn't miss the food or the plans or the pictures. But they felt it. You not being there. The way the house sounds without you. I looked at her then. They miss the stability, I said. She opened her mouth, then closed it. She knew. They don't miss me. They miss the structure I gave them. The certainty. The bills paid on time, the dinners made, the money that just appeared when something broke. Michael. No. I stood up, crossed the room to the shelf I'd built myself 5 years ago. The one no one ever thanked me for, but everyone used. My finger traced the edge of the wood. Still smooth, still sturdy. They never respected where it came from, I said. They just assumed it was owed. She looked away, and in that small motion, I saw the truth. She had assumed the same. You should have said something, she whispered. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was empty. I had said things. 100 small ways. Every ignored suggestion. Every look I gave when Leslie refused to answer me. Every time I stepped aside while Josh talked over me. I had said everything, and they heard nothing. I kept thinking it would change, I said. That maybe if I just held on long enough they'd see it, feel it, understand that presence is more than just being in the room. Julia sat down on the couch, the one I financed, the one Josh spilled soda on and never apologized for. She folded her hands in her lap. I didn't want to push them, she said. I know. I thought if I forced them to accept you, it would backfire. I thought time would do the work. But time doesn't build respect, I said. Action does. Boundaries do. You wanted peace, so you let me take the hits. She flinched but didn't deny it. We sat in silence then, real silence. The kind that tastes like metal and memory. I broke it first. If they want to come back from this, I said, it has to start with them. Not you. Not another speech from Mom. Not another awkward dinner. She nodded slowly. What do you want them to do? Apologize. Leslie's just 17. Then let her learn what that means. And Josh, respect is behavior, not age. She blinked fast, looked down. They'll need to know, I continued, that I'm not their father, and that's okay. But I'm also not their servant. And if I ever come back to that table, it won't be as a ghost. She didn't cry. She just sat there, the weight finally pressing hard enough to register. What about us? She asked. I looked at her. That depends on what side of the line you stand on when they start drawing theirs. She didn't answer. Not then. A week passed. I stayed in the house, in the guest room, moved my things in there without asking, kept my distance, spoke only when necessary. No bitterness, just boundaries. The kids avoided me. Then one day, there was a knock on my office door. It was Leslie. She held a folded piece of paper, hands trembling slightly. She didn't look me in the eye, just handed me the note, turned, and walked away. I opened it. 3 sentences. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I want to try again. No excuses. No demands. Just the beginning of something that looked like accountability. 2 days later, Josh asked me where I kept the screwdriver set. Said he wanted to fix the loose leg on the coffee table, the one he'd broken last year and never admitted to. I handed him the tools. Didn't say a word. Just let him kneel, work, sweat, curse under his breath when the screw slipped. When he was done, he looked at me. Thanks for not throwing me out. I didn't respond. I just nodded. That night, I slept better than I had in years. Because something had shifted. Not perfectly, not completely, but enough. Enough to believe that the person holding the keys finally had a voice. And this time, they were listening. They say time heals. I don't believe that anymore. Time delays. Time buries. But healing, real healing, only begins when the bleeding stops. And in this house, the bleeding didn't stop with time. It stopped with choice. Mine. After Leslie's note and Josh's first real effort, the rhythm of the house began to shift. Subtle at first. Doors didn't slam as often. Dinner wasn't a battleground. They still didn't talk to me like a father, but they no longer ignored me like a ghost. It wasn't affection. It was adjustment. Leslie started asking me questions again. Little things. About her laptop, her car's tire pressure. I gave her answers, not warmth. Not yet. I needed to see if it would last. Josh mowed the lawn without being asked. Cleaned the gutters. Took down the old Christmas lights that had been rotting along the roofline for 2 years. I watched him from the window, half expecting him to stop halfway through, storm off, say something sharp to Julia. But he didn't. He finished the job. Came in. Didn't boast. He didn't ask for praise. That was new. Julia gave me space. Maybe for the first time in our marriage, she wasn't managing me. She wasn't translating between sides. She let me be silent when I needed to be. She didn't tell me how to interpret their actions. She let me witness them, judge them, decide. A month passed like that. No declarations. No grand apologies. Just behavior. And that was enough for me. I started leaving my office door open. Started cooking again. One night I grilled burgers and nobody asked who the meal was really for. They just sat. They thanked me. The silence was still there, but it wasn't hostile. It was respectful, careful, like they were trying to relearn the rules in a game they never thought I'd stop playing. I began fixing things again. The leaky sink, the cabinet hinge, the dryer vent. But I did it differently this time. Quietly, without expectation. Without the sick hope that each repair would be paid back in affection. Because I had learned something. Love, when demanded, turns into debt. And debt corrodes even the strongest foundation. So I stopped trying to be loved. I started requiring respect. The change wasn't instant, but it was permanent. Because when you stop offering yourself as a sacrifice, people have no choice but to confront the altar they built. and sometimes they tear it down. Julia came to me one night after the kids had gone to bed. Sat beside me on the porch. No wine, no smiles. Just that look. The one you wear when you've run out of excuses. I didn't protect you, she said. I didn't answer. She tried again. I thought if I kept peace, everything else would follow. But I let them believe you were optional. That you were replaceable. Her voice cracked. I let them build a home without you in it. And I lived in that home with them. I looked at her then. You did, I said. And that was all. No comfort. No absolution. Some truths don't need to be wrapped in kindness. Some truths just need to stand. She reached into her sweater pocket, pulled out the deed to the house, the one I had amended. She set it between us on the bench. It should be both our names, she whispered. I looked at it, then back at her. No, I said. She flinched but didn't argue. Not yet, I added. If you want back on the deed, earn your way in, like I did. She nodded, and that was the end of it. It wasn't punishment. It was clarity. Because here's what most people won't admit. There's a price to pretending everything is fine. A cost to swallowing disrespect. And eventually the bill comes due. I paid it with years of silence, of sacrificed dignity, of second, third, fourth chances. But I'm done paying. This house, our house, is not built on blind devotion anymore. It's built on behavior. Leslie still has bad days. Sometimes she slips, gets sharp, but she catches herself. Apologizes. That's something I never thought I'd see. Josh still doesn't call me Dad. That's fine. I don't need the title. I just need the truth behind it. And Julia? She's quieter now. Not absent. Just reflective. Like she's finally seeing what she let happen. And she's ashamed. As she should be. But shame isn't the end. It can be the start if you let it teach you something. We've begun again. Not as family, not in the idealized, blended way people pretend always works. But as people. As residents in a shared space. Bound by agreements, not assumptions. And in that clarity, I found peace. Because when respect became the cost of entry, everything changed. No more cake with lies written in frosting. No more trips bought with the hope of affection. No more dinners where I'm both host and stranger. I sit at the head of the table now. Not because they gave me that seat, but because I took it back. And if they want to sit with me, they know the terms. So let me ask you this. Was I wrong? Was I wrong to withhold love until it came with dignity? Was I wrong to teach them that kindness, without recognition, becomes servitude? Or would you have endured it? Would you have stayed in that house, invisible and bleeding, just to keep the illusion intact? Or would you have done what I did? Would you have stepped away from the family you paid for, and demanded to be seen? Tell me, because the question isn't whether they deserved another chance. The real question is, did I?